So welcome everyone. I'm really enjoying this examination of Tonglen practice, the practice of fearless compassion. And it's lovely to go deeper into it every week. Today, I want to begin with one line of a prayer. We often start our contemplations when we're ringing the bell and waiting for everyone to arrive with a prayer called the Four Dharmas of Khenmo. Grant your blessings that my mind may become with the Dharma. Grant your blessings that Dharma may progress along the path. Grant your blessings that the path may clarify confusion. Grant your blessings that confusion may dawn as wisdom. And for today, of course, all of those lines are important, but the image is may confusion dawn as wisdom. So when we think about dawn, it is very, very gradual. It's the light just coming up over the horizon, just in the tiniest, most gentle stages. And that is how we practice Tonglen. It's not about struggling in the sense of an effort or forcing. It's not about getting overwhelmed and feeling like a personal failure. It's about allowing and welcoming just the tiniest bit of confusion dawning as understanding. It's a natural process, of absolutely a part of your meditation and study that you don't have to force and you can't fail at. You are opening at just your own rate of speed. And I guess about a little more than a week ago, about 10 days ago, someone gave me tulips, which are, so lovely. But I love it when I think about the tulips. Let's see if you can see this one behind me. And particularly the yellow one. You can see that they've gone from that beautiful closed bud that we always recognize, opening, opening, opening. And the yellow one is just about to entirely drop its petals. So I love that flower, and that kind of flower is a metaphor because it starts as a bud and you can't make it bloom faster than it's blooming. You wouldn't even think of, forcing it to go faster or thinking that it's a failure. And without any kind of effort or struggle, eventually the petals just fall away into emptiness naturally. So when we talk about Tonglen and the practice of sending and taking, it can seem really scary at first. It can be scary about just thinking about breathing in something that's uncomfortable. It's a way of making your boundaries permeable, and just the tiniest bit of that can just give rise to a very deep-seated fear. And if we're not combining that with an understanding of the view and studies, it can be a very confusing practice. And I say that from experience. When I first tried Tonglen because I read about it, I was in a situation where I was visiting my parents and they were fighting, and I thought, well, I can just do Tonglen, I can take this on. This was a sense of, that naturally arising altruism, wanting to do something. And as soon as I did that, I got a really bad headache. So I thought, oh my goodness, this is a dangerous practice. You can just take in something you're not ready for and something you can't handle. And I got very overwhelmed and stopped actually for a couple of years. And I also remember talking with an old friend of mine who used to work in war zones. And she said, she was talking to His Holiness Drikung Chetsang Rinpoche, and he told her, don't do this in a war zone. You would get overwhelmed and it would be way too much for you to handle. This is not the time to do Tonglen. Now, that could not give rise to any kind of shame, because here she was, an extraordinary diplomat going into a war zone. So she was an amazingly big-hearted person. But it's more understanding the particular stage that she was in terms of her practice and in terms of her understanding of meditation, and knowing what was possible for her right now to do, and not feeling ashamed that she couldn't take on the whole world just because she had the altruistic intention to do that. So that's why we're talking today about the stages of understanding meditation and the stages of growth in our practice, and how to look at how we will grow through this practice. So going back to the tulip going at its own rate of speed, going back to the dawn of insight happening naturally because you're practicing. So I want to, for the sake of illustration, to use a story of Milarepa. And I find some of these Dharma stories to be like koans. I go back to them over and over again, and I really understand them differently depending on the situation and depending on my personal understanding when I'm reading it. And this is one of my favorite stories that always teaches me something. So at this point, Milarepa has made an intention to go into retreat for 12 years. And Milarepa is one of the great saints of Tibet. He left us essentially his songs of realization. And one of the reasons he's such a great saint is he had terrible circumstances in his youth, got confused, went into black magic, killed people, but he went from there to enlightenment. So he's an example of hope, that you can go from the worst of circumstances to the best of circumstances. So at any rate, he's in his cave, and the fire's gone out, and he has to go out and get food. And he goes outside, and there's a big gust of wind. And if he holds onto his robe, then the wood he's gathered falls. And then if he holds onto the wood, his robe falls. And he's just distressed by this. And he goes, oh my goodness, I've been meditating all these years, and I still have such intense personal attachment to my own security. And then he sort of faints because he's, of course, really hungry. So he wakes up and he's anguished, and he calls out to his guru, Marpa. And he sees Marpa arrive on a cloud. And the conversation they have alone would be an extraordinary thing to go into one day. But essentially, Marpa says to him, remember, you and I are inseparable. You know, there's no reason to be sad. There's no reason to think I'm far away. You and I are inseparable. So he has this beautiful vision of Marpa, and he has increased confidence, and he goes back into the cave. And all of a sudden in the cave are 5 demons. And it says the demons are the size of his thumb, but they have eyes like saucers. And they're just, you know, using his stove to make food, and one is sitting on his bed, and they're just running around his cave. And his thought is, oh my goodness, this is a whole series of obstacles. What have I done wrong? So isn't that natural? Obstacles are arising, so I've done something wrong. So he says, okay, I didn't follow all the retreat rules, and I didn't offer the beginning prayers. You know, I did something wrong. So he offers these prayers, and he comes back, and then they just start laughing at him, and they're making faces and grimacing and jabbing him. And he goes back out again, and he says, wow, I need to generate more bodhicitta. And he generates more bodhicitta, and he comes back in, and he starts teaching them the Dharma. And then they laugh even harder, and the demons start imitating him teaching the Dharma. And so in this stage, it's as though we can see, okay, he had theoretical bodhicitta and theoretical understanding of the Dharma. I've read these things, and I can repeat these things to you, and then everything will be okay. So they start laughing at him, and then he goes, okay, this is too much. I'm going to do my wrathful practices. and I'm going to say the wrathful mantras, and you're just going to just disappear. And I love this one because it's such a natural reaction. It's too much for me. I want power over my circumstances. And I'm going to, just use forcefulness to have power over my circumstances. So, of course, they laugh even harder at him. So then he sits down to meditate, and he develops an actual authentic bodhicitta. And what makes it so different is now his understanding from his practice changes the way he sees and responds to the circumstances. So by going deep into his Dharma training, his instructions from his teacher, all the practice he has on bodhicitta, he goes back into the cave and he's at ease. He goes, listen, stay as long as you want. What, you think you have to leave? No, stay another day. Please give me some obstacles. You would be so embarrassed if you left without giving me some obstacles. You're demons. Your job is to give me obstacles. And there's that sense of finally, this great master who thought he was doing well in meditation, coming to the ease where he's so relaxed, where it's absolutely fine. Stay longer. And at this point, we can compare it to our own experience in the sense that we're at ease with our minds and obstacles arise and we simply want to be curious about them. Wow, an obstacle is a troublesome thought, some sort of difficulty. Can I watch it be impermanent? Can I just observe it? Can I welcome it as an opportunity to see how is the truth of the Dharma manifesting in my practice today? How does this view that I've read about and teachers have told me about, how does this actually operate when I'm working with my mind? And that's where we can start to relax and have ease. So then all of the demons disappear except for one. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. And this is the part that's been a koan for me for a long time. So this giant, they all combine into this one giant demon. And Milarepa goes over and he puts his head into the mouth of the demon. And it really makes me think, what kind of understanding does it take when we're in a difficult situation to put our head into the mouth of the demon? And one of the prayers that he says when he's meditating, it's called the Pinnacle of the View, a song of the Pinnacle of the View. And he goes to Marpa's teaching of inseparability and really contemplates, if I really understood this, if I really could take this as a practice experience, then I wouldn't have any fear. There wouldn't be any demons. And so we can see him in this one story going through all the stages. Some we may have experienced in our practice, some we may experience in the future in our practice, but we can start to see that it's a process of understanding what the Dharma is teaching through our own meditation so that we become so much more at ease. We naturally let fears fall away because we can see them disappearing into our minds, into the increasing vastness of our mind. So we're starting small, and as our meditation practice grows, the dawning of full understanding grows. So that's why we practice Tonglen over and over again, and that's why in each one we push the edge a little bit so that we're intentionally letting a fear come up. We're not waiting till circumstances provide a fear. We're intentionally letting something that we can handle today in this moment rub up against us, and then welcome that opportunity, relax with that, and then see what actually is going on in our mind. So if we think about our minds, thoughts themselves, there are awareness holding movement. And sometimes the movement is pleasant, and sometimes the movement is unpleasant. We can start to see that both pleasant and unpleasant are these insubstantial, transient events. And then we can start to see gradually over time, just like the tulip with the petals falling away, that our thoughts about inside and outside also can fall away. And as we do that, our thoughts about self and other fall away until there is just space. And it is this gentle dawning that we don't have to worry about when will it happen, or why is it not happening. It is a product of our growing understanding of meditation, our mind, and the view that's sort of a roadmap asking us to pull the edge closer and closer, relax and welcome that edge. So it's quite beautiful to look at this story, to look at the circumstances that we're facing right now, and to have that natural, playful curiosity in ways that are gentle for ourselves. And so the instructions are in Tonglen, and I'll just review the instructions again. Flashing on our capacity. That's like Marpa arising and saying, you and I are inseparable. The vastness of enlightenment and your mind are inseparable. Have confidence in that. So we start with that confidence. Then we start breathing in something that is subtly uncomfortable. And we can imagine in any way we like the air is dense or the air is foggy. This week, I went into the post office and the air was hot and warm, and it was easy to imagine it like a Petri dish for the virus. And I wanted to just hold my breath. So there's that sense of seeing the outside as the demons and just softening in a gentle way with a tiny little bit of taking in. Then the next stage, the third stage, is breathing in that natural situation where you would say to your beloved, oh, if I could just help you, if I could take on a little bit of your suffering, mental or physical, I love you so much that I would. Breathing that in, breathing that out. At any of these stages, the little demon in your mind can arise and say, what, stop, it's too much. And you go, oh, look at that. This is where I need to gently look just at this edge. And this is enough today. I'm happy that this is showing itself to me today so I can work with that. Then the fourth stage is making it bigger. At any of these stages, we can feel overwhelmed. And the fourth stage, when we envision, the virus at the moment for the whole world, and how can we possibly think about breathing that in? Maybe right now, it's not possible for us. Maybe we're like Louise in the war zone. But as we start to understand our minds, gradually, we can start to see when we are deep in meditation, our experience of our mind is bigger. It's as though when we're afraid, we can feel our thoughts like encapsulated inside our skull like a sponge being squeezed. At least that's what it feels like to me. When I'm sitting in meditation and I've had the good circumstances to be able to work just with curiosity and openness, and my mind starts to calm down and settle, it's like that boundary just sort of fades away, and I don't see a boundary with my mind. It's like my mind is as big as the sky. It's like the difference between being in the house and going outside. When you're in the house, you can feel the walls and the ceiling. And when you go outside, you go, oh, yes, I remember it's a big world. Oh, I remember there's the sky. Oh, I remember the horizon is far away. And when thoughts arise or fear arise or a demon kind of pops up, it's like your breath going out in the air. It just dissolves naturally into that space. There's um, such a dissipation of your breath into the larger space, in the same way your mind dissipates into the larger space, but just slowly and naturally, like the tulip petals fall away. Some days you might feel a little glimmer of that. Some days it may feel like your mind is like the bud, but we can trust, just like the tulip, it just gradually happens in a natural, easeful manner because we're meditating, because we're contemplating the view. That dawn, that falling away, happens in its own accord. So now I'd like to move into the Tonglen meditation with that confidence in the view. And I'll ring the bell and give a reminder of each of the stages as we go along. So first, we're just flashing on the confidence that our mind is like the big sky. Now, very gently breathing in a fairly neutral, gentle way. What if the air was just a little bit thick? What if it was just a little bit smelly? What if it was a little dense? Taking on a little bit of discomfort and sending out relaxed ease. And just noticing what your edge of discomfort is and how you can relax that edge, welcoming that edge. However tiny it is, what is it like to welcome that and relax and then send out ease? And now a situation that's close to your heart, your grandchild, beloved parent, beloved animal companion, any situation where you just open your heart immediately with the thought, oh honey, if I could, I would take this on. And you're breathing that in and sending out what is needed. It's not about fixing anything. It's about opening, welcoming, and giving what we normally would protect for ourselves. So testing it out, opening a little further until you see what your edge is, and welcoming the fact that you can do that today in this lovely protected meditation session. And then stretching. Can I include one other being with that same level of sincere love, that same level of compassion and kindness? Can I stretch it towards one area of the country, one group of people that I think of as strangers? Can I go a little bit further with just that same authentic compassion that's so strong? I see their suffering as the same as my own. So when Milarepa called to Marpa in anguish, Marpa said, "All phenomena are mind, and mind is luminous emptiness. You and I are inseparable." When Milarepa could begin to understand that, to authentically understand that, he could walk over to the biggest demon and with ease and with welcome, put his head into the mouth of the demon. But the understanding came gradually. So I want to repeat that beautiful prayer of Gampopa's. Grant your blessing that my mind may be one with the Dharma. Grant your blessing that the Dharma may progress along the path. Grant your blessing that the path may clarify confusion. Grant your blessing that confusion may dawn as wisdom. So if you'd like to unmute, if you have any questions or thoughts for today. Anyone can ask a question if you want to unmute.
Khenmo, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so the first one, when we were breathing in the air that might have been stale or whatever, you know, I definitely have some environment things in my home that are really affecting me and bothering me, and they're caused by somebody. Excuse me. So when I first started doing that, I was fine after a few minutes. But if I was really doing that, I wouldn't have been fine. Is that in regards to not a good time to do it?
That's in regards to two things. We are not at the level of understanding that we can physically transform elements in our environment that are making us sick, right? So that is a different level of understanding when you have such a vast understanding you can walk through walls. We're not ready for that. No problem. We're not ready for that. You have to take practical steps to have a safe place to practice. So that's like, we can't walk into the hospital without a mask and start treating people right now. Right now, there are all kinds of things that could affect our physical body. So we're setting up learning, learning about our minds, learning about the nature of minds, and learning about emptiness in a controlled, safe environment.
Okay.
And we're learning when our mind reacts and responds. And how do we use the Dharma to really understand how our mind is reacting and responding, and how to use our studies to increase our understanding of the view so that we can take in more in terms of our understanding, and thus open more in terms of love and compassion. But yes, if there are things in your environment that are making you sick from breathing, you need to work with where you are and what is right now for you.
Thank you.
Hi, Khenmo. It's Eileen.
Hi, Emma.
How are you? I found this to be a very powerful exercise. I saw this process of the minute I experienced discomfort, I wanted it gone immediately. I started with yesterday. I was somewhere, there was smoke in the place I was in, and I immediately got annoyed. So I wanted it to go away because it was unpleasant, and I got angry that it was still there. And sitting with it and thinking, sitting with those feelings, and then when I could flash on someone that I don't have negative feelings about, in this case, my grandchild, um, I don't know. That process kind of led me to believe that this feeling of rejection, that I want to get rid of these feelings and get angry over them, that needs compassion as well.
Mhm.
And there was like a softening towards those feelings that I immediately feel guilty about usually, that I get angry when I don't like something. Um, so there was a softening of that, more like an acceptance of these kind of feelings and like they need love too, I guess. I don't know. Um, and it just led me to all these places of family members who really push my buttons and political leaders and all kinds of things. And it just was a very healing kind of thing. I really enjoyed where it took me. If only I could do this more regularly. um, but it is a softening of me. I feel like it helped me to be a more loving human being in that 3 minutes or whatever it was of doing it. And it helped me see that we are all connected. People who push my buttons or situations that push my buttons, um, it's a failure on my part to see adequately. But I also noticed that I wanted to fix. I immediately wanted to fix when I really could experience the suffering of another being. I wanted to take it away. And I think you mentioned that we try not to fix. So there was a little bit of conflict about that. I wanted to respond to it. So to sit with just almost like watching suffering without actually wanting to make it go away was something I kind of struggled with.
Um, what you described is wonderful in terms of seeing the natural response of wanting to reject. And then in this meditation, like we could not at this moment scientifically make a vaccine, but we can imagine breathing in the suffering and sending out health. So it's not an opportunity to switch into a side of the brain that wants to make a solution. So your mind is occupied with what the solution might be. It's more spontaneously allowing that experience of softening in the form of health. Do you understand what I mean? It's not that you're not responding. It's just that you're not switching into an intellectual
Mm,
solution to the problem.
mm.
You're sending out essentially the healing that you just experienced by softening in whatever form. It could be like sunlight to New York. Just some sort of um, uh, flow of health, flow of softness, flow of openness. But it's not that you're not responding, you are responding.
Okay. I guess it's the fix it mentality.
Yeah.
That's there. I don't know if that's supposed to be, or it's something that I should be working with, not to want to correct it.
Yeah, it's noticing that the fix it mentality arises and then switching into an experience of love and compassion going out, actually healing as a medicine, trusting that that is the healing medicine, not trying to solve a scientific problem
Okay.
with
Thank
your mind. Yeah.
Hi, Khenmo. This is Joanne.
Hi, Joanne.
Nice to be here with everybody. So this experience this morning I have found very helpful. Some of you I see online, I don't know. I see others I do know. So I just want to share that for me, embracing the suffering and sending out the compassion is very, very helpful. I am in the process of, from a long distance point of geographic separation, saying goodbye to a loved one soon. She's dying now. as we do this meditation, I am able to move into a different space with her, beyond the mountain that's in front of me to where she is in New Jersey. And almost as if in my mind, I'm sitting there with her. And there is no separation. As I'm able to hold this place of peace and compassion, I'm able to benefit her and those with her, as well as others who are with others in so many places. And I'm grateful for this Tonglen practice. Thank you very much, Khenmo.
And I'm so happy that you can be with your sister in this way. And we'll hold you and your family in the same way you're holding your sister and her family.
Thank you for sharing that.
And in the same way that you're not separate from Garchen Rinpoche when you open to his love. And in the same way you're not separate from your sister and Garchen are also not separate from each other.
Well, Khenmo, I never thought of that, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those words.
So it's incredible to sit with you in your experience, knowing at this moment so many families are
Yeah, it's
apart from
just
each
me.
other.
It's not just me, Khenmo.
Yeah. So it gives us a personal connection to all of those families. And we'll take it through this week. With you and everyone. So why don't we just spend a minute with all the families right now before we close. I'd like to dedicate with the bodhicitta prayer. And bodhicitta is a word we don't have the equivalent to in English, but it is loving kindness and compassion infused with the boundlessness, the inseparability, the emptiness of wisdom. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.
And higher.
So next week, we're going to go a little further with how some of the great masters have worked with this meditation of Tonglen.